Hi, 3DMJers. This is Andrea Valdez, and you are listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. This is another Origins episode where we talk and interview each one of the five of us coaches, and Alberto Nunez is featured today. He is my personal coach. He is one of my best friends, and he has been such a lifesaver to myself and many others. We start, obviously, at the beginning, like every other episode, where he grew up, how he got into lifting, how he got where he is today as an athlete, as a coach, and how he handles being internet famous and all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy this. It's very in-depth and very a very endearing side that isn't necessarily shown, according to Bert. So I hope you guys like it. Leave us feedback if you're watching this on YouTube in the comment section. If you are on our blog, there's also a comment section there. And if you're listening on iTunes, feel free to give us a review. We will hopefully be on Stitcher within a couple weeks for those of you guys that are asking with Androids. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and welcome Alberto Nunez. So, Berto, how you doing, dude?
Good. Just finished an upper body training session. Torso day. It was torso day. Excuse me.
Torso. Did you get like the abs and everything?
Now that I said torso, I was like, crap, I forgot the abs. Because I put them in lower body, but they never get done on lower body day because you're just tired.
Yeah.
Put them in there and they got skipped.
What's a normal Sunday for you right now?
So usually Sundays, around here, there's usually something to do outdoors, which I like because people cherish the sunny weather out here. So there's usually something to do. I usually don't train, but I'm running this pretty ridiculous split where if I don't train per the cycle, like I'll spend 6 to 7 days in between body parts. So that's we're training on a Sunday.
We're going to get to there, dude. I guess I should give context that today is Sunday when we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I should also, you said people go outside a lot here. Where's here?
Colorado. Colorado is how they say it.
Oh, is that how they say it? Colorado. Yeah. Fort Collins,
Colorado. Yeah.
And you've been there since when? Since
January 2nd of 2014.
And they've converted you, from what I can understand.
15. I wanted to move in 14, but I was told to hold
15.
up. Yeah.
They've converted you, though. You love it there. You're outdoorsy.
I do. I definitely do. So, yeah.
So since you've been there, though, your whole life prior to was California, right?
Yeah. San Francisco, born and bred, and then Oakland, I guess you could say, for about 10 years. And that was, I guess, the big issue, is that I was like, wow, dude, I'm like 30. I was 30-something. I forgot my age the other day, which is what happens at a certain point. So for 30-something years, I'm like, you've been living like in this one little dot on this planet. So we're here, and so far, so good. I can see the same thing happening here, though. So
you could be there for 30 years. When you're 60, you're going to be like, God damn it. Okay. Last episode, right? It was me, you, and Jeff, the last one that we published, talking about the art of coaching. And you said that you think a lot of your coaching abilities now was kind of formed. You said growing up with so many types of people. I guess what type of town and school and environment? I mean, I know you said San Francisco, but what do you mean so many types of people and all that jazz when you were little?
Well, I think to start, I'm the oldest child in a Mexican family, but I have no cousins or extended family in this country. Like all my cousins back home, they have it made. They're like, no, why would we jump over that fence? We're cool here. So my mom came over here because she was in love with my dad, and I was the firstborn. So I didn't grow up with like many just immediate friends. And because of that, I had to be really good at making friends outside of just like what would be my family. I remember all my Mexican friends, they had like 50 cousins, and the dynamic was almost like brother-sister, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that. And then obviously growing up, initially there was a language barrier. Spanish was my first language. And then we kept moving all the time, all over San Francisco. So they kept moving me from school to school. I think by the time it was all said and done, I think I went to 11 different schools.
Before graduating high school?
Yeah.
Dang.
So we were all over the place. In San Francisco, it's just like if you're here, this school, if you're here, that school, even though it's a very small area. Um, so yeah, I think that kind of started, that kind of kicked things off. Being the new kid,
Over and over.
over and over. Yeah, you kind of learn to make friends, and I think then as I got a little bit older, I think one thing that I kind of grew up with, and I guess I think like flexing Mexican. Oh, you probably grew up with like the blues and the reds and like this gang, that gang. That was my upbringing, and um, I just wasn't I wasn't very drawn to that.
Uh-huh.
So the only way to, I guess, kind of make it and survive was to like, hey, I'm like the cool one that gets along with everyone, which was very different at that point in time. Um, and yeah, that's kind of how things got rolling. It was I guess it started out as just like being the new kid over and over, and then finally it's like I want to go to school and I want to be safe on the way to school. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
Because
along with everyone.
you told me some pretty fucked up stories about stuff you had to see growing up.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was more than enough incentive to just kind of get along with everyone. And I think that one thing you notice eventually is that at the end of the day, they might not be acting like it, but all these people are human inside.
Yeah.
And that was like the one thing early on that I was pretty good at just getting from people somehow. I had a knack for that. Yeah, I remember this like thugged out dude at some point. This was like freshman year of high school. Like he just came to me with something that it was just like completely out of the blue. Somehow I had gained his confidence, and he was okay with having this dialogue. But he's like, hey dog, one of my nuts is lumpy. What should I do? You know, and and yeah. So I was like, I didn't expect that, bro. So yeah,
Wow.
I was pretty good at that, and I think that's just it's become very useful now where we don't just coach people from who compete in many different divisions, sometimes sports, physique athletes, powerlifters, but across all ages and all over the world, and being able to communicate with your athletes and letting them know that if they have a lumpy nut, they can come to you. That's important.
Yeah, lumpy nuts are super important. But
It's
I
important to
smell
get it diagnosed right away. It's a
yes.
young man's disease, so for
Word.
those of you out there, yeah.
So I'm assuming, or actually that'd be shitty of me to assume, but when you were growing up and you said that y'all moved all the time, that you had a lot of gangs ish around you and all that stuff,
Mm.
was it a pretty like, was your upbringing like, we can pay for him to do all these sports, or was it like, all right, do whatever you can? Like, did you play sports in school? Did your parents encourage you to get into any of that?
So that was probably, I guess, one of the issues with coming from a first generation American family
Yeah.
was that they didn't really know how the system worked here.
Yeah.
So they drilled academics. But when it came to sports, that was something that literally I had to go sign myself up for when I was in middle school for like this baseball, that in like forge signatures and like get the money together because
Dang.
they saw it as like this is just a distraction, whereas it has so much weight when you are finally applying to college. And I was totally clueless to that as well at the time. I was just doing it because it was fun,
Uh-huh.
because it gave me something to do in an environment that wasn't necessarily always wonderful. And I was a really damn good athlete in an informal way. And when you are a good athlete, that's one thing that kind of just makes you a good guy automatically, especially in those
Mm-hmm.
conditions. He's like, oh, he's a really good baseball player. He's a really good pitcher. He's a great track athlete. That sort of stuff just kind of makes you like, okay, this person's like just base. They're cool.
Yeah, because in America, that enhances your social everything.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
in poor communities, that's I think even more so. I
Yeah.
think in some ways. So
So
so yeah.
if you were so good, why did you stop?
So I had the crappiest work ethic at some point. It was one of
Really?
those things. Yeah, I love to compete, and when it came time to compete, fine. But I was really bad about going to practice, about working hard when it comes to the practice portion that comes with all sports. Um, And I think that's initially what kind of drew me to bodybuilding. I remember in track and field, I could just show up, run my lap, do really well because I was afraid I didn't want to lose, and that was good enough to get me by. Whereas with bodybuilding, it's like, today's progress is on the backbone of yesterday's progress, and it's kind of like a pyramid, right?
Right.
So you build up your pile. Um, so there was no such thing as like I'm gonna go this week and then I'll come back 2 weeks later and I'll be stronger. No, you had to put in work and to see it accumulate. That was different to me.
Okay, so it was almost like, I don't want to say too easy for you, but it came pretty easily. So, like one of those, the more you put into it, the more it feels worth it, the more viable it feels. And if it was so easy for you, it's kind of like, meh.
Yeah. Just I kind of lost interest in other sports because of that, and just nothing touched my soul the way weight training did. And it's funny because I never saw that coming, to tell you the truth. I remember all the kids were, um, they were into like looking muscular, and I didn't see it. I never thought that I needed to be more muscular. I never thought there was necessarily anything wrong with the way I looked. So I didn't even see what was the appeal. I thought it looked ridiculous, to be quite honest. Um,
You
so
were you
so
were a skinny kid, huh?
I was a very skinny kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, very very skinny kid. And I mean, so skinny. I think when I started training, one of my goals was like to get rid of like my abs and ribs because I would get teased about them. So I'm like, you know what? While I'm here, I'm just gonna overeat and get as big as I can. And no, it turned out to be one of those things where, like, especially early on, like seeing all those changes, and then the more I did it, the better I got. That was awesome. And then with like weights, it's like, so like these were hard last week, and these dumbbells are easier this week. That was awesome. I had never experienced something like that before.
What put you in the weight room to start? How did you get
Um,
there?
My friend Carlos. I remember he thought I had really good biceps, so because of that, I should go weight train with him.
Okay.
And I just wanted to hang out with Carlos. That was initially why I did it. I had no genuine interest. I didn't see the fuss, and
How
I
old were
think
you?
think I was 16.
Okay.
16. Yeah, had just turned 16. And man, I think it took me about a week and I was hooked. And then I recall just maybe like 2 months later, like dude had completely dropped out of the gym or was very spotty at best. And I'm still there going.
Uh-huh.
And then, I mean, it just continued. And then there was a few times where it got me away from trouble where I should have been somewhere else, but I wasn't. I was in the weight room and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm just going to keep doing this until I can better control myself. Um, so yeah, it was my first love, and it's kind of crazy that yeah, it's 16. That was back in 1999,
Oh,
the first
dang.
time I went to a fitness center.
Fitness center.
It was inside a mall, yeah,
No. In San Francisco still.
in San Francisco.
Okay. And so was it immediately, okay, I love this, I want to go every day because of all the intrinsic thing it gives me? Or was it, oh, look, I'm getting jacked, I want to compete? Or was it just, I'm getting jacked, all these girls are noticing? Like, what do you think that first probably year of it that really stuck it to you?
So the positive feedback from my peers was awesome.
Yeah.
I think it was over the summer, and then within 2, 3 months, I remember
Uh,
coming back, and they're like, "What happened to you?" And I just remember just all the positive reinforcement from peers of both genders. I thought that was pretty awesome. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is pretty cool." Um, but then it got to the point where I think I got hooked on getting stronger. That was
okay.
the main thing. Um, and yeah, just continuing to do things that I didn't think I could do. That was pretty. I never saw myself as like a strong, muscular kid, so to just kind of see that happen, that was pretty awesome. Um, so yeah, the first year it was a combination of both. I think it was pretty well balanced. Um, I remember the gains were like at the time like so easy that I would like stop every like 4 or 5 months, like the first 2 or so years, because I felt like I was getting too bulky and I was looking um, like almost like midgety. And like now, if I could go back, I would like tell that kid like, dude, just
Just keep
no,
going.
no, you want to look like Jeff Nippard. Jeff Nippard, we love you, dude. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was just yeah, yeah. So So yeah, I think I got in there for different reasons. And because of that, I think my relationship with it was quite healthy. I don't think I was necessarily trying to make up for anything. It was totally unexpected, to be honest.
Did you go? Where did you go to? Did you go to undergrad right after?
No, no, no. So because I had no interest in going to college, to be honest. I just wanted to get to work right after. And at that point, I was kind of the head of my family. So it's like, well, I can go to college and I would do the math. And I'm like, by the time I get a decent job, I'll be in my mid-20s. They don't have time for that. My sister's 7 years younger than I. I need to make money so that she can graduate and, she can have her picking at whatever school she wants to go to. So yeah, right away, I think I did try. I split time between community college and working full time, which just does not work very well, come to find out.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you stayed in San Francisco to do that, and you just, when did you, because all I know now, we've gotten to that point in your story, and then I know at some point you were in Sacramento teaching or coaching something while also doing 3DMJ. And I know somewhere before that there was a big bulking period of like 19-year-old on the forum or something like that. Like, there's like a 5-year gap I have in your story that
Oh,
I'm
there's
missing. There's a
yeah,
big old
that
gap.
is yeah,
Tell me,
that was
what's next?
yeah. And I think it's the part of my story that I don't really ever tell because there's just like I have no clue what I was doing, to be honest. Like here I was trying to take care of a family, but like it's like, dude, you need to take care of yourself.
Right.
And like looking back now, I probably could have taken a much more reasonable approach than I did. So yeah, like right out of high school, it was working. It was I stopped weight training actually because so I was born with a heart murmur, and just it always freaked me out somehow. Like I can't hear heartbeats to this day. So I decided, well, I don't know if this weight training thing is necessarily good for me. I get really big when I do it. And then I become less athletic. I can't play basketball as well as I'm used to. Those sort of things. I'm going to take up cross-country running. And that's what I did. So I took up long-distance running. And to tell you the truth, this was vital because I sucked at it. I remember I could sprint really well, but if you told me to like just continuously run, it's like 2 minutes into it, it's like my butt is burning really bad. Like I want to stop. So I did that, and I moderately enjoyed it. I have a lot of respect for endurance athletes now. But one thing it did is it allowed me to actually, one of the groups that I was running with, he worked with high school level athletes, and he saw that I had a knack for teaching people how to be better runners. And I think the main reason why is because I sucked at it.
Okay.
So I had a lot of empathy for those who were not necessarily having a good time, or it wasn't coming to them as quickly as the Kenyan over there. So yeah, I did that for a while, but then I was like, I kind of miss being strong, and let's get back to that. So that was kind of rushed. I got back into it, and I wanted to make all that progress overnight. And like the initial bulking phase started pretty solid. So I got to about 180. But unlike a lot of the kids nowadays, so this was my perspective on everyone at the gym, is just like no one uses steroids. Everyone is natural here. Steroids are for losers. That was the way I saw things. So I never questioned the fact that my training partner, I never asked him, and we just never had this conversation. We would just train really hard. He ballooned up in a good way from, like 190 pounds to well over 250, 260.
Jeez.
And I'm talking like stacked, like grown man stacked. And the kid was 18.
Whoa.
And the kid ended up winning teen nationals a few years later. And he was a light heavy, shredded on stage. So kind of goes to tell you just how big he was. But I never questioned it. I never questioned anyone else at the gym. And so I'm like, you know what? If this person can do it, I can do it. So my idea at the time was like, if I get to 200, I'll cut down to 180. But if I get to 220, I'll cut down to 200. And it was probably the least fun I've ever had with bodybuilding, to be honest, because I was so food focused in a different way. It was always time to eat. So I got up to, I think the heaviest weight that I got at some point was 250. 250. It was a
Oh my
3-year bulk.
God.
It was a cheater weight because it was like PM, and given all the food I ate during the day, and it was enclosed, but I just wanted to be 250. I had to be 250. And
How old were you?
I was 23.
Oh my
So from
God.
like 19 to 23, that was my project. Just be as big as you can. And it took a long time. Um, I mean, looking back now, because I remember I was working at this grocery store, and they weighed one of my sandwiches because they thought it was hilarious just how humongous they were. And it was a 7-pound sandwich.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yeah. So I mean, looking back and accounting for all those variables, I was probably closer to 230
Yeah.
morning weight, but that's still pretty ridiculous given like my current size and frame.
Well, because now your stage weight is 160?
160, and I never let my off-season weight get above 185.
Oh my God. Okay, so then when you were doing that giant bulk, you already at like 20 years old were thinking I want to compete in bodybuilding.
Yeah, yeah. So after the running was done, I needed something else to do. The running, because I
Yeah.
could barely call it that, to be honest. And yeah, I would go on the bodybuilding.com forums, and I remember two people in particular, Lane Norton and then Derek Charleboy, who I might be saying his name wrong. It's French.
Flinch.
French. I think it is.
Okay.
But yeah, both of those guys posting. I remember they would post their contest prep on what was forums at the time. It was like the YouTube of back in the day, and just watching them go from like 20 weeks out to 16 weeks out to 12 weeks out to 8 weeks out and making it happen, and then like looking freaking awesome the day of. To me, that was probably that was very inspiring. And again, that's what drew me to this, was the fact that like today's work is piling on yesterday's work, and building up my stack. That was initially what really sold me on this. And I wasn't necessarily ready at the time for like these like long-term goals, but a 20-week prep to me sounded freaking awesome. And how you can do all that in 20 weeks, have this deadline and make things happen. That was still a very foreign concept to me. But I knew that before I did that, I wanted to get huge. Like, I didn't want to just do a show. I wanted to be super competitive and as big as I possibly could. So I took that route. And looking back now, I really wish, man, if someone would have been there to help me out early on, things would have been a lot different, for the better. But yeah, no, we learned our lesson. I have no business being 250, and I never made it on stage at 205 or 210, which is what I had projected for myself.
Could anyone have told you anything different though? Like when you say, I wish I had someone around to tell me, or were you like stubbornly like, this is what has to be done?
I think I was pretty stubborn because there was enough resources at the time, and I knew of them. Dr. Joe was pretty big back then. He was like the natural guru, if you will. He was the first guy kind of, bringing evidence-based practice into bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding at that. So I had him accessible, but it was one of those things where it's like, nah, I kind of got this under control. It sounds way too boring and strict.
It makes way too much sense what this guy's saying.
Yeah.
I'm just going to turn into a whale. Thanks.
I was not ready for that, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I learned, and I ended up getting back down to like 195 in order to just have a reasonable body comp. And it was a 9-month cut. So when I thought about it, I'm like, wow, so you spend almost 4 years gaining and almost a whole year cutting. This approach probably doesn't make sense. But I think, again, after that, I learned to slow things down, be a bit more meticulous, a bit more. I still wasn't quite there. I wasn't ready to be a bodybuilder. And it definitely kind of changed my outlook on other things in life.
So your first time on stage was 07 or 08?
Yeah, so it was a year after I dropped that weight. So obviously, after you go from mid 200s to just under 200 pounds, you're just not ready to keep cutting. I needed to reset things for a while, and I was still under the illusion that it was okay to bulk. So I got up to what I thought was a very modest 210, and then I started to trim down. That's when me and Eric kind of started talking, was somewhere around that point. And this is, you guys might have heard in Eric's podcast, I think I got on stage at like 190.
Yeah.
190.
Which is 30 over for you now.
Which is 30 over. And then I realized I was really fat after seeing Eric, and I trimmed down an extra 10 pounds. That's basically all I could mentally tap into. Mm-hmm. And I got on stage at 180, and at that point I realized, like, oh, okay, well, my system is severely broken. And it was the only time I've ever competed back-to-back years, just because I felt like that physique was not very reflective of what I thought I could do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the year that I met Eric. And again, we have very different approaches. His diet was, as you guys might have heard, very meticulous, super meticulous. I think he was eating, like, some of his meals were ridiculous. It was like a little, like, energy bar, like the little miniature ones, like for the man on the go type of energy bars. And my dieting approach was way different. I remember I would take Tupperware to work with chicken, peanut butter, and I would share my meals with, like, the stray dogs. So that's definitely not type A enough to have success as a bodybuilder. But that's where I was coming from. I was very, very relaxed, and I loved to train, but I was not quite ready. And my training was pretty smart and sound. Like, there was a plan there. Uh-huh. But when it came to my nutrition, it severely lacked. So
was that lack of so that wasn't lack of education. It was just like, that sounds real hard, I think I can do it this other way. Was it like a defiance thing?
It was a combination of both. Okay. Because I think to some extent, a lot of us were not completely sold on the whole, like, calories in versus calories out model that's so popular now. I mean, that's one of the reasons that Eric was eating like 12 meals a day, was because you had to keep the metabolism going. And that's going to change the energy balance equation, right? So we were a little rusty when we were a bit confused when it came to a few just very basic concepts. And in my case, yeah, it was that, and it just did not fit my personality at the time. I wanted to do it my way. Yeah. I wanted to do it my way, and my way didn't work. So the very next year, I hired Lane to do my prep, and, like, looking back now, especially as a coach, I was probably the most chill prep ever. Like, I would just report every week with, like, oh, lost another 2 pounds, I'm okay to go. Yeah. And that is it. And it was very successful. It was very successful. I think our numbers were definitely, I was on 175 grams of carbohydrates a day.
Oh my God.
For about 9 months, but I was so motivated. I wanted to beat last year's effort that I didn't. So when people tell me about poverty numbers, it's like, dude, you have no clue.
Well,
like,
but for some people, 175 is a lot. Let's put into perspective, like, how much you eat currently.
Yeah. So if I'm dieting for a show, my carbs are never going to get under 350. That's just how it typically goes, or it has been so far.
So 175 for you is legit poverty. Like,
it was legit.
I want to kill myself.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, and my refeeds were under 300. They were 275. Yeah. And a lot of it had to do because I wasn't counting calories. I just kind of told them what I thought I was eating. I wasn't very meticulous about weighing myself. So there was still things there that were kind of missing. I weighed myself once a week at night. Yeah. So had we seen how quickly I was losing, I think we would have done something like, hey, I keep losing like a pound a day, and it's been like 2 weeks now. But I wanted the progress. I wanted to do so much better that I was so about the bottom line. Again, when people tell me, oh, this kind of hurts, it's like, dude, you have no idea. Back when I first started this, well, mind you, it was a different era, and people were kind of carbophobic. Mm-hmm. If you were on like 1 gram of carb per pound, you were a carb machine at the time.
What?
Yeah, that's how it was. Anyone who was on like over that was just like a freak of nature. Mm-hmm. Whereas like now, like even like me in the back of my mind, when I do that to an athlete, I'm like, they're not gonna like this, but we have to do this.
Yeah. What were your fats and proteins like at the time, if you don't mind me asking, or if you remember?
I remember, because it was the first time I've ever tracked so meticulously. They were at 45 to 50, I think. Okay. My fats on both days, and then my protein On the low days, it was 240, and the high days, it was 220.
Okay, but that's a lot more protein than we give an athlete most of the time.
Yeah.
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 So it was a little bit of a trade-off. But still, you're one of those athletes that, after all these years, has learned that carbohydrates are a much better fuel source for you than anything else.
Yeah. I did not notice it at the time because, again, I was so amped up and so motivated. I so wanted to eat. That the hunger is like, no. It was the first time I was actually being more flexible with my eating. So just that in itself to me was like, this is good enough. I'm beggars can't be choosers kind of deal. And the fact that I can take my 175 grams of carbohydrates and I can have Weetabix sometimes, I can have oatmeal. To me, that was just like, unbelievable. Yeah.
And so after that, when Lane prepped you, how much longer was it till you prepped again?
So
you did 2 seasons in a row.
Did 2 seasons in a row, and then after that, I felt like I needed a little break from competing. So not until 2011 did I compete again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of like getting my butt whooped the first time I competed as a pro, and then also just the fact that I wanted to do other things and I wanted to enjoy training again. And that's the one thing about bodybuilding. It sometimes doesn't make sense. It's like we're going to like not feed you enough for many months and you're going to train really hard. I just wanted to get back to the root of it all, which was like I enjoyed training.
Yeah. Throughout like 07, 8, 9, how was your life outside of it? Were you still working, supporting your family, trying to do all that shit at the same time?
Yeah. So it was a combination of going to school, working, and still I struggled to balance all those things. Like every career that I think I picked at the time was for the bottom line. There was a point in time where I wanted to be a nurse. And like looking back now, it's like, dude, that would have sucked so bad.
What was your degree in?
My degree?
Yeah, or what'd you go to school for? What were you chasing?
I bailed out of my RD degree. I was going to be a registered dietitian, and then I knocked it down to a dietetic technician, because that's kind of like the nurse to the RD.
Okay.
And it's just I couldn't get into those classes. I would get in there and I would do really well, because if I'm going to be there, I'm going to do it right. But I didn't enjoy the curriculum one bit, and I think part of you should enjoy your education. Especially the way it's set up now, it's like it's there so that you can survive and have a good life. But at the same time, you got to pick what you love, and my heart was not in it. It was just was not a good time. Not a good time.
You were also still in the forum, so I'm sure all your attention was kind of there then, huh? You spent a lot of time with the computer.
Oh yeah, so
okay.
Me and Eric would just spend more time than we care to admit, just learning.
Yeah.
And jumping from forum to forum to forum, and sometimes I'm like, oh, you're on this forum too, because I would search his name and there goes Quelly, So we're probably members of like 7, 8 forums, to be honest. And yeah, that's kind of where I knew that this bodybuilding thing was what I loved. It's what I wanted to do. It's the thing that's like stayed with me the longest. But how I was going to make that a part of my life, I had no clue. I was going to school to be what I thought I was going to be a nurse. And then obviously because the allied sciences, they kind of cross over really well. I was like, okay, I'll just take these classes and I'll be an RD. But that didn't even work out. That ended up not interesting me. What I did enjoy, though, which I was doing at the time, I was working with a program called Learning for Life. And what they do is they set up after-school programs in Oakland, California, which if people don't know about Oakland, it's like the exact opposite of San Francisco. It's obscene.
It's a little sketch. Yeah.
It is something else. And I remember I think it was first graders out, and we were in the yard, and I think it was just me being optimistic, but there was a loud boom, and I'm like, oh, it's an engine. That's what it is. It's a car engine. And like the kids right away, like they knew what it was, and they were marching in. So yeah, it was just
first grader had to go.
No, it was just gunshots. It just would pop off. Just pop off at the neighborhood. And the school protocol was like, go inside. So they knew the difference. They knew exactly what that was.
Oh, poor things.
Yeah. So that was a gig that again reinforced the fact that I love to work with people. Mm-hmm. And again, it was a very similar. I think there's a lot of similarities there that in my job with Learning for Life, like that I have today as a coach with 3D Muscle Journey. I think.
Did you ever personal train either?
I did that. I did that for like 4 months, and I was really good at it. I was really good at the selling part. I remember that. I was very good at the selling part, and it was 24-hour fitness. But I did not like the fact that I think 24 kept most of my money. So
you're like, I'm worth more than this, guys.
And then like it was really hard to work at the gym, and then once you're off the clock, like, oh, I'm still hanging out at the gym. So that kind of made training not as exciting anymore. So that didn't last very long at all. I did learn quite a bit though, because again, you're dealing with many different kinds of people. You think everyone's going to come in and they want to be just like you, and that's the furthest thing from the case. Yeah. Some people just want to get out of a chair. So that was fun and definitely worth my time. But I knew it's not what I wanted to do. And again, that was kind of the issue. It's like I like this bodybuilding thing. It's just that at the time,
it wasn't a job for people yet.
There was not at all. Not at all.
So you and Eric and Brad and Jeff in 2009 actually, right? Was that the year it officially all came together? Mm-hmm. And so it was you guys doing that on the side while you were in what particular occupation? Sorry, I know I just asked you this.
So I was still working with the after school program. Okay. And I did that for 4 years. And even my last year, where I was kind of partial, I was a sub, and I ended up spending like more time there, I think, at the end of the day, because I'd be at every site in Oakland. So we all had jobs, and I think 3D Muscle Journey was kind of our little escape, because training isn't enough. It's like we want to talk and do this thing all day. Yeah. And we'd get together on the weekends, especially during spring and summer, hang out, go to shows. And again, those were some of the best times. I remember one powerlifting meet in particular. I think it was our first, we had just gotten our t-shirts in. Or maybe the second time we wore our t-shirts. And I remember Eric coming up to me, he's like, so how many cards did you pass out today, bro? Business cards. Yeah. We got business cards made. And I think I had none. He had like 3. So that's where we were. But
you loved the shit out of it.
Oh, we loved it. But it's so crazy to think about that, though.
Yeah.
Like looking back
now. That wasn't that long ago. When you think about it, like, not at all. And so when you guys were going to powerlifting meets, you had already competed at this time then, huh? In powerlifting whenever 3D started. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Eric and I did our meets. He did his in 2006, and I think I did my first meet in 2007, which was Eric's second meet. So we did that meet together. So we had dived into both sports a little bit. But again, the idea that, we didn't necessarily want to train people. We wanted to put out better information. That was priority number one. And we thought that at some point organically, we probably would be asked to do that, but we'd be quite limited, and it would never be a full-time occupation. Right. And I think more than anything, we just wanted our immediate surroundings to be more about that, to have people be on the same page as us. Because, man, when you look back, just 2009, it's crazy how much different powerlifting is, how much different bodybuilding is. I mean, both sports have progressed so much, not just in how many people they attract now, but in the way they do things. And that's basically what we wanted. We wanted everyone to just enjoy the sport and have not the exact same, but just know some of the things that we do. Because I remember my first year that I looked right, that was in 2008, the year with Lane. I'd say about 90% of people backstage were cutting water. Yeah. And I felt like this is so unfair. Like I want all you guys to drink water, to have a good time, to have an effective prep, because I know everyone here is working really hard, but their plan is just, it leaves a lot to be desired. So that's what we wanted, first and foremost. So it's quite crazy when I think about, like, hey, we're passing cards. Hey, we had a seminar in Portola where they were great, but like the average age was like, I'd say like mid 40s.
And no one was getting on
And
stage.
I'm being very optimistic. Yeah. And they just wanted to move without pain. Yeah.
So you guys started on just a blog, right? And you were kind of reporting about shows featuring athletes that were natural and not being idiots, right? And all that. But when did it kind of seem like, when was the light of like, oh shit, maybe this could be my job?
I think because our content was pretty good, considering we're talking 2009 here. It was pretty good, and we were very, very open to just talking with anyone and helping anyone out. We would get inquiries here and there, but I think more than anything, again, we were still in that, like, we need to give, we need to change the sport. So we came out with like the sponsored athlete. So we wanted to sponsor an athlete and have them do well. And again, no one was doing this at the time, so just that in itself would attract a lot of attention and again, just hopefully motivate people to take a better approach when it comes to doing things. So to be honest, I don't think we ever saw it being much more than that. And I think the majority of us kept our full-time job up until like 2012 or 13.
Yeah, that's when I started watching you guys, right before Eric left for New Zealand. And you guys, I remember seeing you guys, it was Eric's house though still, before it was your house. Right. I remember seeing all those Q&A videos. But YouTube changed y'all's dynamic quite a bit too, huh? When people could actually see you.
Yeah, I think directly and indirectly. To me, YouTube at the time was some place where I would just load up my videos, my training videos, so I can put them on message board forums, and that was it. That's all it was to me. So remember when a young man by the name of Matt Ogus, we were helping him posing, he was like, I'm going to do this YouTube thing and it's going to do really well because everyone on YouTube looks like crap and they're horribly confused. I was like, no, you're not, dude. Let's just get on with the posing. You're holding us up here. Yeah, you can videotape. We had no idea. And it ended up helping us because obviously we coached Matt and it brought attention to us. And then we saw it as like, oh, wow, this is a very, very solid platform to help even more people. No cornrows. I took those off for this.
Okay, we're back on. Okay, sorry, those of you who are listening, we had some technical difficulties, but we are back. We were talking about 2013. No, I lied. 2011/12ish, where YouTube was going, and then Matt Ogus, being coached by Eric Helms, had him on there, and it was kind of like this leakage of all these people watching 3D now, and then you're kind of sort of halfway famous, and then and you were also prepping, because I remember seeing videos of you that were just you sitting at your desk before breakfast.
Yeah, I was prepping, and that's probably when I had the biggest client load, because we were getting a bit more business at that point in time. I saw it as, okay, so we need to do well, and my idea, my perspective at that point was like, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really good job with these people, because I do a horrible job with people now. But no, I wanted to do a really good job because word of mouth is it's huge. So that's probably the biggest client load I've ever taken, along with prep, along with work, along with everything else that I had going on. But it was one of those, like, I guess like that Eminem song, you only have one chance to blow. It's like, we need to seize this.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen is that if, we do really well, that, eventually everyone else will just quit their jobs and do this 3D muscle journey thing. and do it a lot more effectively because it's going to be our only gig. So I think at that point Jeff had already that's what he was doing, simply because the auto plant had which he was working at since I think his teenage years had shut down. And so I was like, yeah, this is our shot. Let's do it. And man, to this day, I'm still a little traumatized from those years, simply because, I don't think I saw a day off for about 11 months, to be honest.
Do you think that having that many athletes was a good distraction from the rigors of prep, or do you think that it almost caused you into a little bit of craziness for a year?
No, because I think with the whole bodybuilding thing is it's when you for example, when you eat an apple, all the digestive enzymes to take care of that, it does it for you. You don't have to sit and think about it.
Right.
So to me, it was a very welcome distraction, to be honest.
Yeah.
As long as I get to train and I get to eat my food, after that it's do whatever you like to me. I'm good. I'm taken care of. Very, very basic with those needs. And that was my perspective then. And I think even now, I think that's one thing that goes a long way. The less you think about prep, at least initially, the better off you're going to be. So that was super appropriate at that point in time. And I think when you are in contest prep mode, you get super creative. Something about that caveman brain. It's we need to find a way to eat. Let's invent wheels and create fire so that we can eat, right? So that, and then you just kind of get in that zone where just tunnel vision, no matter what it is. Yeah, you're hungry, but I find it very productive conditions to work under.
Everybody, man, your NEAT goes down and you kind of turn slothish, but I think 80% of prep for 90% of people, everyone's that's the most productive I've ever been. Because distractions definitely help, but I was almost wondering, because it's you're going through this stuff, you're physically going through prep, and you have to deal with 50 other people going through prep differently than you. I almost wonder, what am I trying to ask? How is it different coaching athletes when you are in prep mode and when you are not in prep mode? Do you feel like you do it any differently? Not on purpose, but
yeah. See, that's one thing that I understood about weight training right away is right away I had a very favorable response compared to my friends. The reason I kept going through training partners is because their bodies just weren't cooperating the way my body was. So I knew that right away, and I think one of my incentives to be informed was because when you are the big guy at the gym, people are always asking you questions, and I wanted to be able to help them, and I wanted to give them a better answer than this works for me, bro. And then when I did the endurance running, I got to be on the other side of things. It's wow, I am horrible at this. I really have to be on top of all those details. So yeah, I don't and at that point also one thing I knew is that, hey, I lose fat really well. I will emaciate myself on 175 grams of carbohydrates and have absolutely no issue. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
I want to teach these people to maximize themselves. So that's something. I think there was a lot of experience. Those were valuable years because I had all kinds of different people with different goals. And yeah, at that time we thought we were going to be working with mostly people who want to get stage ready, and that was not always the case. We worked with a few people who, they were very close to general population clients, to be honest. So yeah, it was very. I kind of went in with that mindset, but then I left with that mindset confirmed that okay, everyone in some way is they're humans and the same rules apply, but everyone is kind of a snowflake when it comes to the psychological side of things.
Why do you think that you have an easy time? When you say losing fat's easy, is it because you don't have to take much food and your body responds? Or do you mean that you as psychologically as a human, it doesn't disrupt you very much? Or both?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
For example, people getting cold during contest prep, I don't know what that is. I have no clue. It's just, I don't feel it. There's a point where I feel like I'm just hotter because I'm I'm able to move more efficiently, especially at the gym. And this was even when I was like on like no food.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have the same impact. And I feel like if you were to ask a lot of guys backstage, especially at the uber high level, like, do you have these, and these symptoms? It'd be like, not really. You know, it just sucks that I can't have pizza after training. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, it comes easier, but I also understand that it does not come easy to a lot of people. Um, and yeah, and that's where, again, that's where I didn't want to be just that guy that looks good. So because he looks good, follow what he does. Because
Yeah. And do you feel like that's
that,
almost a hindrance? Not a hindrance, but a lot of people who are really good or things come really easy, as you know, aren't the best coaches.
mhm.
And I think you are that little bit of a unicorn that, like, you understand that you have it a little easier for whatever reason, but you still do such a good job empathizing with people who don't.
Yeah,
It's
and
impressive.
and yeah, that comes from those early experiences. It's just like, okay, if I come up to this dude that way, he's gonna shoot me, so I better not, you know. So just yeah, just kind of learning to yeah, work with different kinds of people, and especially when it comes to bodybuilding, yeah, everyone's body is a little different, and especially under like when they decide to take on a contest prep. And I think a lot of my athletes, thankfully, they understand that, yeah, while it does come easier to you, it doesn't mean that it's going to come easier to me. But they also seem to trust me a lot when it comes to making decisions, when it comes to their prep, when it comes to what I think might work best for them. Um, and yeah, that's one thing that I'm really, really, I guess, if I can like think of one thing that I'm like, wow, this is one. If I can just sit here and make love to myself, it's probably that one thing. It's just that they understand that, you know, and I got that point across, and that's super important.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you feel like bodybuilding became more of a negative than a positive for you? Like, was it only in those early years where you were like, I'm going to Folk to like 250? You were obsessed, and since then, it's been chill, you know?
Yeah, I think the folking was probably the hardest part, simply because you sign up because you love to train.
Mm-hmm.
You're in love with the way the gym makes you feel, and then you learn that, oh, so you need to eat some protein. Let me start eating some protein, and I remember that all those things for me, like they're things that would bring in little by little, like, and not because I did that on purpose. It's just the way it worked out. But I remember starting off with like, okay, so protein after my training session, and I remember saving $2 for my lunch money so that I could buy my Mesotech bar, which was the best protein bar at the time when I was 16 years old because I needed whey protein
Uh-huh.
after my training session. That's what the magazine said. Um, and then little by little, like you keep adding more things, like, oh, so you need to eat 6 times a day to keep your metabolism running. It's BS, but that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're doing all these things, taking these supplements, those supplements, and it's like it's gotten very complicated. And I
Yeah.
think during that point in time, that's probably as complicated as it ever got. Like I remember, dude, it's like it's kind of crazy. It goes to show you just how strong the human mind is. Because I remember there was times where I'm like, I'm gonna faint. I haven't eaten in 5 hours, and it's like, dude, shut up. You're 230 pounds, bro. You're gonna be okay. You know?
Everybody's got plenty of shit to eat for a while.
Yes, you can. You don't have to eat for the next 4 months. You'll be okay.
um, I guess, so if when you worked with Lane and you said like you learned so much, it taught you a lot, did all these great things for you, why is it that every prep since you haven't used a coach? Like why was it in like 2011, that next season, where you're like, man, I'm just going to go for it? You feel like you learned a lot? You feel like you had the other 3D guys?
Certainly. So I
Yeah.
knew that I had good backup.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that Eric was going to help me a lot with my decision making. I knew that both Jeff and Brad had been doing this longer than I have, and whenever they have an opinion on something, especially when it comes to like how you're pacing things,
Yeah.
like I'm all ears. Like if I hear one of those guys say like things are going well, it's like things are definitely going well because these guys have seen everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that made me very confident. And then one thing I did after I finished with Lane is that I decided to, I guess, reverse diet up, if you will. And that's when I saw that. I was like, oh, okay, so I'm 5 pounds over contest weight. Eating now like 3,900 calories. Maybe I dieted a bit too hard, right? And I just continued to be pretty meticulous when it came to my tracking afterwards. So after just being more meticulous when it comes to everything, it's like, okay, we'll apply these same concepts, just apply them on the way down. We're just going to undereat in a very controlled manner. But don't get me wrong, I was very nervous. There was still a part of me that was like, well, what if you can't do this on your own? What if you don't look as good as last time? What's that going to say for 3D Muscle Journey? I'm glad it worked out, though.
Yeah. Well, and the stakes too, like you saying, what's it going to be for me? What's it going to be for 3D? And then, shit, that was 6 years ago. So now, as an athlete in the last 3 or 4 years, do you feel even more pressure to do well? Like, are you almost crippled by it? Do you enjoy it? Or are you like, kind of, is it always in the back of your mind, like, if I fuck up, it's got the 3D name on it? Or like, now you've been a pro for so long, or now you're, however famous you are, So do you like that? Do you ever consider that?
I've thought about the possibility of doing a prep and, for example, having to bail out for whatever reason. Like that's never happened, but when I talk to competitors that have done this many times, almost every one of them has a prep where they had to bail out at a certain point.
Yeah.
So that I'm like, well, I'm kind of due for that. And then maybe I'm due for a prep where I regress in some manner. Because it happens, and especially when you are that close to your genetic ceiling, like it's very easy to take a step backwards without really even knowing it. So that is definitely something I think about. I feel that because in some ways, not because I am by far the leanest, like if people knew the stuff that people need to take a stroll through backstage at a Yorton Cup or like the WMBF Worlds, and it's like a free convention. Like it's like, where did you guys come from? It's like they're not human, it seems like. So I'm definitely not the most gifted, the most like leanest competitor out there. I'm not the leanest by far. Especially when it comes to those like shows late in the year, but a lot of people hold me up to that standard. So I feel like I have, as like the poster boy, the messenger, if you will, for natural bodybuilding. It's like I need to do something to show people that, hey, we can progress for a very long time. I think that's the one thing people, when they think of natural bodybuilding, it's like, oh, your first gains, all your gains 3 years, and then after that, you're basically like fighting for nothing that's really worth it. So it's a combination of 3D Muscle Journey and my sport.
Yeah, and also, I'm glad you brought that up, because when you say poster boy, you, in the last 5 years probably, have become pretty internet famous for all the things that you do, via YouTube, Instagram videos, guest videos on other people's channels and all that. And does that carry a lot of weight for you? I guess, like, how do you think that happened? You have no idea? You're just like, I just keep doing my thing and people hang out.
It's funny because, so I was watching Parks and Rec the other day. There's this character named Ron Swanson. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he loves like woodwork. And so he was at some woodwork. He entered his chair in some competition. Well, I think it was a woodworking convention, but there was some guy there that was like the shit, right? And like it was hilarious to see this like very like one emotion type of guy just like lose it and get all giddy over like this like 79-year-old dude that was like famous within that little community. So it's like like when I scaled it like that, it made me laugh because I'm like, wow, it's the exact same thing as like what we do. We make chairs. And like you can't, I don't know, you can't take it too seriously because at the end of the day, I'm crappy at so many other things. I'm really good at this one thing, but there's just still so many gaps, and that's what people choose to see, which is quite convenient. But at the same time, it can be a little misguided. And that's probably, if there is one thing that's frustrating about that, is that people see you as like when that guy in IKEA whispered in Jeff Albert's ear, like, Godfather. It's like, dude, Jeff is so much more than like Godfather. Like he's a bunch of like wonderful things.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one thing, is it like people are just like so they capture you as like just like this and that, and that's all you are. So that's a little frustrating, but at the same time, it offers a little protection because it's like, hey, you only put out what you want them to see. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been over the years, like I've been quite resilient when it comes to the trolls, because to me, it's like outside of like my little circle of people, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You know, it really comes down to like my tight, close group of friends and what they think about me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's man, it's odd. It's weird. It is an odd paradox for sure. But like, I don't know, you can't help but laugh at it, to be honest. I mean, without the internet, with all this, I mean, just imagine where I'm thankful, but at the same time, you can't help but just like.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too that people are like, Berto's the man because he eats all these carbs. Like that's and you're just so many, again, like you said, you're so many great things. Yeah. And I think that, cause 2012, I was like, I need Alberto Nunez to be my coach, And with me, it was, you guys hadn't done anything besides, like, we're sitting in this kitchen answering 3 questions from the blog, and y'all were doing those over and over on YouTube. And it was, I don't know if I ever told you this, but it was this weird combination of you and Eric seemed to be on video more often than Jeff and Brad did. And then Eric was just, like, so smart that it was just, like, I don't know, whatever, it was, like, above my head. But for some reason, it was like your communication style that hit me. And I think that people who don't know why they follow you, I think that is it. I think that you, like you said, just the ability to reach a lot of people in your messaging, like your slight humor, you're very good at analogies, like, making comparisons to, like you just said, we're the chair maker. Like, that's not how normal people think. But you do a lot of that. You convey things in a way that's easily understood. I think I had a little bit of like, oh, there's a Mexican also in the back of my brain that I was like, he's going to be my coach, So, I don't know. I just think it's so cool watching you grow from like, I'm watching everybody, but you especially, like with Instagram and Snapchat, you're so useful. I just want to say thanks to our whole, like, on behalf of all of our people that follow you.
No, and it's crazy how, I mean, I go back to when you were first moving, and I remember driving to that first training session. We were going to meet you at the gym, and it's just crazy how things have grown for both of us.
Yeah.
Since then. And it's crazy. So I'm like, I have no idea why she picked me. Does she like really know what she's getting into? Wait till she meets me.
Yeah. And I think too, I was in grad school with Jeremy and Chris, and you competed with Chris in 2011, right? At the something in KC, right? And they spoke so highly of you also, and I think that was also like a bit of the brainwash too, is that they actually knew you from the forums. And it all just kind of like came together in this little like, I want him to be my coach. And then Matt Ogus and Chris Lovato were super cool with me starting YouTube. And I was on the phone with Chris one day, and that's whenever he was like, he's all
very different people.
Yeah, again, all very different people that spoke highly of you, and I was like, he's going to be my coach if I go there and move. And yeah, now I'm interviewing you on our podcast, and it's just fucking weird.
And we've had conversations now that extend far beyond coaching. It's crazy.
Y'all are my fam now. Shit. So why you and Eric both... Well, no, now everyone besides Jeff, I guess, has done powerlifting. But how do you like that as an athlete in comparison to the bodybuilding?
It's funny because it's humbling. It's so humbling because I think next time I compete, for sure, it's like if you don't win your show, dude, you screwed up somewhere. That's going to be the perspective. And I think at this point that's about right. Okay. Like I need to do very well. Whereas with like powerlifting, it's like I'm still chasing like elite class, like in my weight class, like to be classified as elite to me is still a big deal. That's like getting your pro card, like in a show of like where there was 2 bodybuilders. like when I see what a lot of my friends do with powerlifting. So I love it's kind of like it's kind of like the endurance running thing, but not quite.
Okay.
Honestly, I enjoy the platform. I enjoy performing. I think a lot of bodybuilders go towards it because they're like, oh, I need something objective, like
Yeah.
while I'm in off season, something to gravitate to. And much like a few years ago, I was, like I said, I was that kid that's like, oh, 20 weeks of like goal setting, that's about as much as I can do. Like now it's totally different. Now it's to the point where it's like I can totally be prepping for a show that's like 4 years from now, and like have my stuff together and understand in my mind that like as I line up with those guys and we're about to go on stage, like I don't ever want to have that feeling where like I could have done something a little bit better, and it's becoming very clear to me right now as we line up that I'm going to come up a bit short. Like I don't want that, and I have an easy time connecting to that. So to me, off season, it's like I'm all about that bodybuilding, and rightfully so. I think at this point it needs to be that way. In order, like you need to specialize. Like there comes a point in any athlete's life, and it just so happens that for bodybuilding, it's a little bit later.
Yeah.
So I love powerlifting. I love the platform, but like. I'm a bodybuilder like to the bones. Like that's just who I am.
Do you think you'll compete again in powerlifting?
Yeah, I think at a certain point, and I'll probably do it very similar to how I've done every meet but one meet. Like I guess I've tapered. I've only tapered it going into one meet because I don't want it to interfere with my bodybuilding training. Like the meet that I used to qualify for nationals last time I competed, I went to go hit arms and shoulders like right after. Like I went to go find a gym in the Bronx. It was the dirtiest gym ever. But it's like I'm like shoot, I still have shoulders and arms in my program. I need to go take care of that. So I will at a certain point. It's just like no rush. But the same way kind of goes with bodybuilding. I want to compete next year, but if I want to just bodybuild in a slightly different fashion, I'll continue doing that too.
Right. And so at the beginning of the call, you were saying that your program right now, if you missed a day, it wouldn't allow for much wiggle room because of how much volume it is. I think that's another thing that you're like hashtag known for is for being like the volume junkie of the group. Has that always been that way? And how did you get that name? Why does everyone think you're that?
So yeah, I think I think I probably use as much. No, I think me and Eric are kind of head to head, and Brad's slowly creeping up now. Jeff is Jeff, like he is, like compared to him, like he's just like his own unique thing. So, yeah, all of us. I was always kind of, and I think it's just because I've trained longer than Eric for sure. But like he's kind of creeping up there now, and Brad's up there now. But I guess like my thing is that, so this phase right now. The reason that I'm training the way I am, it's because I'm using less frequency and actually less overall volume. Just because, so this is something that I've taken from other sports, is that like the whole year is not meant to be, like you shouldn't be progressing the whole year. That's how you break yourself. And I'm very fragile. Like physiologically, when it comes to dieting, great. It's like, this is awesome, you know? But when it comes to the weight training, it's like, okay, no, I've been hurt one too many times. And I think that's just because I've been overly ambitious like throughout the whole year. Like I make some progress, I'm like, okay, well that worked. Imagine if we add this on top of that. So these next 2-3 months are going to be pretty sandbaggy, and then we'll turn it back on, and like my joints will be like nice and fresh and ready to really start progressing again. But again, that's that big picture thinking. You could have told me a few years back, could you like go to the gym but like just like try not to progress really, like just try to keep things. Yeah. Like, would not have been okay with that.
And is that just something that's like progressed over time? I mean, it's like anything else, right? Like you said, it's one lesson on top of another, and learning yourself. And something that I like that, I mean, we all know I'm newish to 3D, but what I've always loved about you guys is if I look at videos from 3D in 2011 versus 13 versus 15, the message, it's not a different message, but it's, but kinda, you know, like it's the openness to learn and change your mind. Yeah. As a group, I take a lot of pride in that, you know, and so you always being that volume junkie, good hearing you saying, you know, and correcting everyone with the carb junkie thing and now the volume junkie thing. It's like actually, it's a controlled manner over time, and I do have this plan and this purpose. And what is that purpose right now? Is it to compete next year, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, to compete next year, to be healthy. It's hard enough. I prepped once like with an injury, and that sucked. Like it's hard enough to
Yeah.
prep, and then you add that to that. Um, so yeah, just to be healthy, so I can make that last spurt, and make some really good progress. And yeah, that's one thing that I keep thinking is it, like if you ask trainers at the NFL level, like what is their job, honestly, it's just to keep athletes healthy.
Yeah.
Um, like keep those bodies on the field, they'll be productive. And I think at this point, I'm at a place where like just get me on the field and I'll do my job, but I need to show up. And so by taking a step back, yeah, that's what it's going to allow me to do. It's going to allow me to show up more frequently. It's a very important leg of my bodybuilding career from like now until like my early 40s. It's like, dude, you have some serious progress to rack up, but some very difficult progress to rack up. And it's always in the back of my mind that no rep can like make you, but like one rep can break you. And I've been very close to that a number of times where because of one, and I knew better half the time,
Yeah.
because I took that dip. I was like, oh wow, I think I think I might be done for a while. So like that's frightening at this point.
Uh-huh.
Um, as easy as I was able to like let go of bodybuilding, like back in the day, like go on, come off, go on, come off, but still loved it. I don't think I could do that now, and I want to be able to do this in a productive manner as long as possible. So yeah, I think more carefully before I act now.
So in the lifetime natural bodybuilder, in your mind, what is the next like 10, 20 years look like for you? Is it competing? Like, do you want to be on that level of those guys that can keep that physique and compete every year, every other year? Do you enjoy your longer off seasons? What do you see it like the next decade?
If I ever win worlds, like I'm just retiring. Like that is it. Like I am done. I joke about that, but no. I think the next few years, I definitely want to progress more than diet for shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think eventually there'll be a point where it's like, okay, I'll just chill like 4 or 5 pounds over stage weight. Like you pretty much have put on as much muscle as you're ever going to put on. It's more about how much can you keep,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And at that point, it's going to be like sometimes I feel that the older folks have a easier time dieting because like they're bodybuilding, their meals, they're hitting their macros, if you will. That's their gift to them. Um,
Yeah.
and they have all these other things like maybe 10 years from now I might have a family and kids, and it's like, okay, well, for fun, dad gets to hit his macros, put on the Speedo, and that's all he asks.
Yeah.
So at a certain point I'll compete more frequently, but as of right now, I love training too much and love training in a progressive manner. So it'll evolve at some point to something like maybe what like Marshall Johnson does, for example, where
He's
it's like
every year now.
if there's a show going on somewhere, guess who's there? Yeah, show in Alaska, Marshall's right there kicking some ass. Yeah, so yeah,
Is
yeah,
there
that's
anything outside of are there any goals out like that you can actually name and think of right now outside of being an athlete? Like, and obviously you're going to continue coaching, but are there any other like career goals or life goals outside?
yeah. So this is one thing that I've like always kind of like thought about in the back of my mind. I would love at some point to have, I don't know about bodybuilding, but perhaps because I'm familiar enough with powerlifting, um, having gyms in like inner cities where the kids come in, they learn to set goals, they learn to, believe in what they can do. And, hey, get some of that bonus, like positive things like muscle that comes from weight training. Um, I would love to do that in some capacity at some point. Just have that in many different cities. Of course, we'll start small, but I think like if it wasn't for bodybuilding, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
So that would be like a dream come true. Pretty far away from that right now, but when I do get to the point where it's like I can sneak this in, that's something that I need to do.
Is there an organization that you support that does this? If I'm not, am I crazy? Or is there's something that you were posting about? Is it lifting for?
Oh
Wait, what am
yes,
I talking about?
yes. Lifting for Life Worldwide,
Okay.
and what they do is they they do it around the world in other countries. I think.
Oh.
Yeah. I think right now I'd get the country wrong, but it's somewhere in Africa. That's their first spot. And I would like to do something similar to that, but it's just, man. I mean, I've lived in places and seen things that just horrendous. It's like you would be like in this country for reals. So it's like I would like to start here and then maybe at some point. But there's just so many young people that they need something like that.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're close to the end. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that you think you need to tell people? I mean, not that we're not going to talk to you every other freaking week, but on your time.
No, I think we covered most everything. I think Eric did a wonderful job with the timeline when it comes to 3D muscle journey.
He has the craziest memory. Every date, every pound, everyone he competed on stage with.
He can tell you like what I weighed, what restaurants we ate at after every show, many restaurants.
Uh-huh.
No, I think that if anything, honestly, I'm really excited about hearing everyone else's story. So like Eric's story, like I was mowing the lawn to it. And it's just it's interesting how, you know, we're all here together as a team, but we all have very different perspectives and stories, and like here we are. So that's probably what I'm most excited about, is to hear everyone's version of this video. Like Jeff's got some stuff to say. Brad's got some crazy stuff that people don't necessarily.
Yeah. Brad's was surprising. We already filmed his. And
like the same thing with you. It's like we're here now, and we're part of this the same team, the heads of this team, and I want to hear everyone's perspective, just because again that's really important when it comes to learning to deal, cooperate, and just enjoy different kinds of people. It's just like understanding that their perspective might be different, but it's there for a reason. And there's a lot you can learn from that.
And that's what makes you a good coach, man. I'm so happy to be able to do this with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No problem. We'll see you in a couple weeks.